Hi, my name is Elizabeth,
Hey, I'm Alex.
I'm Kayvaun.
and today we will be discussing the topic of school shootings in the U.S.
To explore this complex crisis, we will begin with context, focusing on the history of this problem and related significant events. Next, we will discuss the cause, the root of this conflict under the analysis of different theories we have learned throughout the course.
Then we will look at who is involved, who are the stakeholders, who needs to be involved in the discussions to lead to change. Furthermore, we will look at the impact of these tragedies, who is affected, and how.
Next, we will explore how this conflict can be transformed, sharing different ways each of us thinks this crisis could lead to a positive peace. Lastly, we will share organizations that are working to transform this conflict.
So, as we mentioned, I'll be covering the context surrounding school shootings in the US. I think it's important as we begin this conversation to remember how grave and tragic these events are. This photo is of the victims of the Uvalde school shooting, an event I'll talk about later. As I go into the context of these events, let's not forget the very real victims and their families. In trying to present the context surrounding school shootings, I was posed with a real issue. The narrative of school shootings is rife with media and political sensationalism, and the many instances of school shootings vary greatly. They don't all happen the same way by the same people and for the same reasons. The government doesn't even officially track school shootings, so it's up to reporters to try to record and list the different events. School shootings in the US go back as far as the 1760s when a group of Native Americans attacked a schoolhouse and killed the teacher and as many as 10 students. Since April 20th, 1999, there have been 413 examples of school shootings. Now, that's a date that we'll come back to later. It's also important to note that this problem isn't going away. In fact, 2022 had the most recorded school shootings. So I'm sure a lot of you have heard about the Columbine High School massacre, as it's the first shooting that really took the media and nation by storm, beginning what historians call the mass shooter area. This is the date, April 20th, that the Washington Post decided to start their research from, and this is kind of the reason it felt like the beginning of a new era. I want to start by saying that I'm purposefully not naming any perpetrators of these events because I don't want to glorify them. So people really wanted, when this happened, a reason to explain why it happened. They blamed all kinds of things, from rock music to Marilyn Manson to violent video games and movies, and they used the journals of these shooters as ways to push these narratives. And in this way, we begin to learn that the cause of these events isn't so simple. But again, I'm still working on context. So in this shooting, two seniors from the high school tried to set off some detonations in their school. And when that failed, they went in and started shooting. They killed 12 students, one teacher, and 21 other people were injured. It received a crazy amount of media coverage and sparked heated debate. Here's some other relevant and very concerning figures for school shootings in the US. If you look at the table, you can see that this has been a problem for a long time, and it seems to be getting worse. 2020 looks like a big dip, but that's just because during COVID, people weren't in schools. 2022 is huge again. The American Academy of Pediatrics did the research to find a lot of these figures, and that's because gun injury is the #1 cause of death for people birth to 19, which is really scary. And as you can see, the United States is way ahead of any other major industrialized nation in terms of school shootings. It's not even close. Sadly, the median age of school shooters is 16, and the Washington Post has estimated or know that at least 205 people have been killed. To round out the context of school shootings, I've included information about two more school shootings which occurred in the past 2 years. The first is the Uvalde shooting, whose victims you saw in the beginning of this section. There was an 18-year-old shooter who bought an assault rifle just days after his 18th birthday, legally. And this happened just 10 days after another mass school shooting in Buffalo. 21 were killed, 17 were injured. Secondly, a school shooting which hit close to home for me. I live in Nashville, and this happened just a few miles from where I live. A 28-year-old ex-student walked into the Covenant School and killed 6 people, including 3 9-year-olds. It was a really difficult time for the community, for the victims, and it hit really close to home. My neighbors knew the family of one of the young victims, and it just shows how close we can all be to the effects of school shootings. Now let's discuss the causes of school shootings using the different theories we've covered in this course as lenses. In the first module, we watched the documentary on soldiers of the conflict in the Middle East and read the Brooks article called Natural Born Killers, the Mass Murder in Us All. The soldiers in that documentary talked about the way that the Army tapped into an innate aggression and capacity for violence to train soldiers to kill. This directly relates to Brooks's point, which is, and here I quote, "We are descended from creatures who kill to thrive and survive. We're natural-born killers, and the real question is not what makes people kill, but what prevents them from doing so." So in this school of thought, when we're correctly taught to avoid and quiet these urges, we don't kill. But when we don't do those things, there's potential for instances of mass violence. Essentially, it's in our DNA. We're aggressive and we're prone to violence. A second possible explanation relates to Maslow's human needs theory. He argued that there is a hierarchy of needs that all humans have, and when these various needs are not met, people will often turn to violence. As we said, it's a hierarchy. The needs at the bottom must be achieved first, but a lack of fulfilling any of the levels of the pyramid can lead to violence. In the case of school shootings, I would argue that the vast majority of them could be due to failures in fulfilling the love and belonging and the esteem levels of the pyramid. For example, one of the Columbine shooters mentions sexual frustration and a lack of intimacy frequently in his journals. Now, often people will say, well, these are mentally ill people. And it's cited as a reason for and kind of like pushes away the blame for these events. But Maslow viewed a lack of fulfilling basic needs as playing a greater role in violence, believing that those with mental illness still strive for self-actualization. They just need to be supported in fulfilling their basic needs. This kind of complicates the issue and doesn't allow people to simply push these narratives of, oh, they're mentally ill, we can't stop it. Finally, a third possible cause of school shootings is championed by Johann Galtung, the very handsome guy in this slide. School shootings, as we can all agree, are examples of direct violence, where someone is physically harming others. According to Galtung, though, direct violence is accompanied and predicated by cultural and structural violence. Cultural violence is symbolic violence built into a culture, which legitimizes the structural and direct violence that occurs later. Examples of cultural violence that could lead to the direct violence of school shootings are mostly ideological in nature. Perpetrators will see their victims as other and dehumanize them. This can be based off of nationalistic ideology and other ideologies. This matches with structural violence, which I see as the ability or freedom to easily purchase and procure guns, and then leads to direct violence, which is children being killed with guns at school. Now I'll pass it off to Elizabeth, who will discuss the parties involved in these tragedies and the impact of school shootings in the U.S.
Inevitably, every time we hear of another mass school shooting, conversation centers around what we could or should have done to prevent it and how we can stop it from happening again. These indescribable acts of violence impact grieving families, survivors, and the community as they grapple with profound and enduring disruption to educational environments, long-term mental health issues, and persistent political tension as opposite sides argue about issues like gun control, bullying, and mental health. For example, in a 2020 study published in Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, researchers analyzed data from 44 school shootings between 2006 and 2015 and found that antidepressant use for students increased over 20% in the 2 years after a school shooting among students who were exposed to it. The same researchers also showed that in the 2 years following a school shooting, students were more likely to miss school, be chronically absent, and repeat a grade when compared to their peers. Long term, these students were less likely to graduate high school or to attend college. By their mid-20s, they were also less likely to be employed and earn less than their peers, which could add up to $115,000 in lost wages over their lives. There are also lasting political implications for communities. The Institute for Policy Research at Northwestern University reported on a study that looked at voter data for counties that experienced school shootings between 1980 and 2016. Though voter turnout didn't change, they found support for Democrat candidates increased by 5%. Understanding these impacts of school shootings before we can arrive at a transformation, we have to first assess who is involved in the issue of school shootings and how their needs are related to these seemingly senseless acts of violence. As with so much violence in our society, unmet human needs lie behind the issue of school shootings. Alex mentioned Maslow's hierarchy of needs earlier. Maslow and conflict scholar John Burton both explain that our human needs go beyond just basic food, water, and shelter. There are other needs essential for our development and growth. Burton adapts Maslow's theory of needs and agrees that human needs are essential, but contends they are not hierarchical, but rather are pursued simultaneously and relentlessly. According to this human needs approach, a primary cause of conflict and violence is this unyielding drive to have these needs met. To resolve the issue of school shootings, there are multiple stakeholders whose needs should be understood and addressed. While we might struggle with empathy for those who would commit such an act, the human needs theory argues that those who do have essential needs that have not been met. Studies have shown that risk factors associated with youth violence include a history of being a bully or victim, exposure to violence, experiencing family conflict, and being diagnosed with an externalizing disorder, such as attention deficit hyperactive disorder or oppositional defiant disorder. Students who struggle with these are not meeting their essential needs, like belongingness, self esteem, and identity. Surviving school students, schools, and surrounding communities are left feeling they have no security or safety, and they are not able to live without fear and anxiety. Two groups that come into play as a result of school shootings and who are on opposite sides of the political spectrum are those who advocate for gun control and those who lobby for gun rights. Both groups lack the sense of security. Those who want gun control don't feel safe without tighter restrictions. Those who want gun rights do not feel safe without their right to bear arms. Both groups are pursuing freedom and participation, hoping to achieve the ability to control their own environments and also influence society. Nonviolent transformation potential. Understanding these human needs we just reviewed is an important step towards transforming this crisis and leading to positive peace. Applying human needs theory to conflict resolution recognizes that everyone at the table negotiating for resolution has needs that are non-negotiable. To arrive at a nonviolent resolution, none of these needs can be compromised. When needs are recognized as non-negotiable, steps can be taken to find solutions that don't compromise those needs but still lead to positive peace. When schools and social systems fail to recognize or respond to students struggling with unmet needs like belongingness, self-esteem, cultural security, and identity, the result, as human needs theory suggests, is instability and forced change. In other words, violence. Bringing these unmet needs to the table, along with those of the other stakeholders, including security, freedom, and participation, and recognizing them all as non-negotiables and not merely something that would be nice to have, is a process that can lead to more positive resolution. As I mentioned earlier, to the public eye, empathy, much less forgiveness for school shooters, feels impossible. But restorative justice may be an important nonviolent step towards positive peace. By focusing on the needs of the victims, the community, and the offenders, restorative justice emphasizes healing, forgiveness, and accountability. Specific steps could include facilitated dialogue where survivors, family, and community members can share their experiences, feelings, and needs. If possible, either the offender or representatives of the offender take part, so they have the opportunity to understand the harm caused, take accountability, and apologize. From there, the restorative process would focus on building programs that foster belonging, empathy, and nonviolence as a means to build a culture of trust and respect. Sandy Hook Promise, an organization founded by families who lost children at the school shooting, developed a program called Know the Signs. By teaching students and educators the warning signs of potential violence and to seek help, this program has prevented 16 planned school shootings by building strong relationships between teachers and students and by centering all students' voices in the discussions for solutions. Programs like this offer nonviolent resolutions and a path to positive peace.
What up, y'all? I'm be talking about organizations working for change. Um, this nonprofit organization was founded in 2012 from the families who lost loved ones in the tragic Sandy Hook school shooting on December 14th, 2012. The mission of SHP is to prevent any future gun violence or victimization through educating and implementing programs that will protect children and teach people to notice, intervene, and seek help for individuals who may be at risk. SHP objective focuses heavily on the training of millions of individuals to intervene and recognize potential threats, creating safer, more productive educational environments. This crucial work saves lives while also positively impacting the safety and resilience of many communities. Protecting our students. Protecting our students is a nonprofit organization committed to keeping students safe in their educational environments. This organization was created in response to the rapid increase in violence within schools. This organization mission is to ensure and encourage the safety and security for all students by preventing violence through proactive intervention and strategies and advocating for effective safety policies. This organization plays a vital role in preventing future violence, the support of mental health, advocating for safety, and empowering communities. POS has worked hard to inform students and staff on how to effectively respond to threats. They're also very dedicated in providing the necessary resources to encourage mental well-being. Students Demand Action. Student Demand Action is a youth-led movement dedicated to ending gun violence and advocating for stronger gun control laws. The organization is driven by the belief that every student deserves to learn in a safe environment, free from the threat of violence. Gun violence is a progressing issue. Schools and communities everywhere. As students, we have a unique perspective and voice that can drive meaningful change. By raising awareness and advocating for sensible gun laws, we work to ensure that future generations can live and learn in safety. And to encourage young people to take action and advocate for policies that prevent gun violence, promote gun safety, and protect the rights of students and communities across the nation. Thank you.